still set for substantial completion next week. And then in late November, we've got the move scheduled to transition, I believe, the 7th grade wing down to that 6th grade section so we can continue working on other portions of the building.
Okay.
Shane, can you give the board an update about the boilers and the heat in the building?
Yes. So in regards to boilers, that's another lead time item that is just constantly an issue at the current time we're in. And so as of right now, we've got the condensing boilers up and running and started. That condensing boiler is, has a substantial BTU to it where it will be able to heat the building, throughout these next few weeks where temperatures aren't, dropping into the 20s or even the teens. We've got the first of our cast iron boilers on site at this point. We started installation of that yesterday. That'll be about a 2 to 3 week install, at which point we'll have that up and running. So it'll transition should be a very smooth transition to these colder temperatures where we'll have those up and running and fully functional for this winter. But as of right now, we do have the first condensing boiler online, and that's able to heat the building to what I believe is a comfortable and acceptable temperature.
So these boilers you're installing, they're also going to be the boilers for all sections of the building, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's not like we're waiting on other boilers for the next phase either.
That is,
These
yes.
will handle the entire site.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the last question from you, where we are with bidding on phase 2 and the price, the maximum price for the board to approve. What's the timing on that?
So as of right now, we went out to bid starting last week. We've got a pre-bid meeting tomorrow up at the middle school. What that does is it just allows an opportunity for subcontractors who have been reviewing the scope, reviewing the drawings, who are interested. They can meet on site, meet our team, meet Zeb, any other admin members that are present. It gives them an opportunity to walk the building, kind of get a sense for logistics, really walking around and getting a sense for what they're bidding. After that, we've got about a 3-week window of collecting bids where we're closing out the bid collection process at the end of this month. And then that gives us roughly 2 weeks to de-scope, pull everything together, sit down with these subcontractors, vet them out. As of right now, we've got, I think, a substantial amount of interest in the project. We had a very, expansive bidders list for this phase. So it'll give an opportunity for both the people that are on this portion of the project, this phase 1A that did well. Obviously, they have an opportunity to bid, but we're also getting competitive bidding from other subcontractors beyond them. So to answer your question, we're still online for that November 14th presentation date, and we'll be closing those bids out roughly in the next 3 weeks.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Any questions for Steph?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next to Hayes.
Alrighty, so the bus garage. Construction's actually going really well there. So starting in the upper left, I'm just going to talk about the photographs, and we provided this handout to the board on Friday. Hopefully you've all gotten a chance to see it at this point. So the photograph in the upper left is a photo of the fuel pump station for the bus garage site. So the pads right in front of you are the ones that are new that were poured and replaced. The pads to the right are actually going to be poured later this week as part of the last concrete pour work that goes on site. The middle photo shows the pad between the two buildings. Only the front left corner is yet to be poured, and that's going to be poured later this week as well. At the same time, we poured the other half of the fuel pump area. And then the photograph on the lower left, that photograph's actually a couple weeks old, but that was them finishing off the large storage underground retention tanks and filling it in. I thought that the photo there was a little more interesting than seeing just dirt, because that's what it is right now. All of the piles of dirt on site are gone. The only thing left for them from that standpoint is some earthwork, so they're going to have to move some more earth around the site to get the grading right, to get the drainage in. Next step after that is electrical. So we have to run all the underground electric for all the heating locations for the buses. So they have to put those in. They need to put the bollards in that are going to protect those electrical outlets so they don't get run over by the buses. We have the site fencing to do. Later this month, right at the end, they're planning to do the curb work. So they'll do all the curb pours around the perimeter, and then after that's asphalt, early November. So if all tracks well, we'll be done before Thanksgiving. So.
How much dirt did we have to take out? Remember, we had the issue with the
We haven't gotten the exact quantity back, but it was significantly less than we were worried about. So,
savings out of,
yeah, so I think we gave a figure of 250,000 or something. It will be well under that.
Good.
So I don't know the exact amount yet. We haven't seen the change order, but it was way less than we thought we had to pull off site.
excellent.
No. I don't want to, no, it was historic fill. So it was fill material that was from older than 1988. So there was no contamination on site, but because the standards pre-1988 were lower, we can't just assume it's clean. So therefore, it has to go to it would have to go to a properly disposal site. So, landfill or something would take, non-clean fill. So what we did was we reused that material on site in places we could in terms of modifying some grading around. And then we just took off a little bit more clean fill that was there in its place. So that's how we managed that to keep the cost down. So.
And Doug or Dr. J, our contract at the Oxford at the mall was for the end of November, right?
Through Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so that works out great then.
Black Friday shopping and buses.
Yeah. Use the buses.
Any other questions for Ace? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
On to Raw.
So Cassie, I saw you online there. Cassie's still battling COVID, so she's going to present from home. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, and thank you for allowing me to do this. This makes it a lot more convenient. But I apologize in advance if I start to lose my voice. If I drop off for a minute, I'm just taking a drink. Tonight we're providing an update on the project, as with everything that you're going to see tonight is still a work in progress. Things are ebbing and flowing as we go through our conversations with the various user groups, with the administration, with our site designer. So this really represents a snapshot of where we're at today. Do I have control of that, or is that something that you advance? Okay, thank you. This is the most recent site plan for the project. It's very similar to what you would have seen at one of our prior meetings, but we keep evolving the layout. We've looked at different ways to...
Is that on our side or hers?
Cassie, can you get closer to your mic? We're having a hard time hearing you.
Let me see if I can... Come on. Okay, is that a better mic?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Should I repeat anything? Should I start over?
Start over with this slide, please.
Okay, thank you. This is the most current site plan that we have. We've been having a lot of internal conversations with the administration and our site designers on how to improve all of the different circulation paths that are on here. And so even this graphic is a little bit outdated as we continue to try to work through how the buses are going to circumnavigate the site and how they're going to stack. But in general, I think it gives a pretty good high-level overview of the organization of the different traffic patterns. One thing that we've talked about is that the purple dots represent the vehicular drop-off and pickup, and the ways in which we can maximize additional stacking through the parking lots in a serpentine fashion, how we can basically run 2 rows of cars to a merging point, roughly where the text that says main entry is located. We've also, one of the main changes from what you would have seen in prior diagrams is that we're planning to pull the buses in. As they're coming off of King School Road, they'll turn right into the area behind the building. And rather than go around the kind of the front of the building, they'll be in the loop in the back. And we've been having conversations about how to maximize that area, what that looks like on the site, but then also how the kids are, preparing to either come off the bus and go into their classrooms, or at the end of the day, how they get from their classrooms to the buses. So, like I said, this is a snapshot of where we're at, and it's continuing to evolve. Does anybody have any questions about the overall site?
One of the changes that you might notice, folks, is that the driveway from NAMS is now connected to the site. That the last iteration, it was a retaining wall, and you couldn't get from Murray Avenue onto the campus. But that has been
Yeah.
revised. That's going to help us during construction, because we'll need to have some parking and bus access for the NAM students, so they'll be able to circulate, and we'll try and get that road connection done first.
Okay, okay. Just one question on the circulation, the bus drop-off. I don't know if it was an email from Dr. Jansani, or maybe in our last discussion, there was some concern about being able to get everybody in, off the bus, and into the classrooms in a reasonable time. Was there some risk we're going to have to shorten the school day, which I don't think anybody wants to do? Are we? Loading? Loading out at the end. Going out, okay. I mean, are we comfortable, and I don't know, do we need to do any time studies or anything, but are we comfortable with the time we have and the amount of students that have to get through 3 doors and onto buses that we can do it?
It's been a big topic of conversation, and I think we have a plan now that we're waiting on just a little more detail. We're going to have Mr. Zeiler do a sort of a sandbox version of the bus software to sort of map out a route for 2025.
Okay.
And once we see the potential arrival and departure times, then we can figure out that the plan we have will work.
Okay, okay.
So one of the other things that we've been working on is some of the imagery of the exterior of the building. Once again, these are kind of a snapshot in time to kind of show where we're at. This first image really doesn't give a shot of the building, but it does kind of give you some context of what the building will look like from King School Road. And you can see that it sits down away from the main road quite a ways, and we're actually entering higher than the building. We've also included some conceptual renderings of the look and feel of the building. We do not have the entire circumference of the building designed, but you can see kind of the flavor for the building. A lot of natural materials, some playfulness with use of color. Basically, what you're looking at here are is masonry and some panels that have some wood grain effect to them. They're not wood panels, but they're wood look panels. And then the use of glass on the facade as well. You might as well go ahead and flip through these, and then we can, if there are any questions. These will continue to evolve, but we wanted to kind of give you some imagery of where we're headed with the exterior of the building. Can you go back to one of those? See, go back one more, please. So in this image, what we're really looking at here is the main entry to the building. You enter underneath the canopy into the secure vestibule. This high space that you're seeing in this image is primarily the large group instruction space. I know we talked last time about how that space is a little bit like an auditorium, but is also multi-purpose. So we do have some windows there, so that, because we do anticipate that most of the time it's going to function as a multi-purpose room. Those windows would be treated with shades for the assembly times, when you want to be able to block out the lighting. And over to the left is the music area. Anybody want to circle back to any of those or have any questions?
It's Sharon, Cassie. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed looking at those pictures. It's very exciting to
Okay,
see
great.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, and like I said, you're going to see them evolve a little bit as we go along. But it's good to kind of, set the tone of like where we think we're headed with things and give you guys a chance to see them, at this early stage. And Daniel, who's also sitting online with me, did a really great job with those renderings. So the other thing that we wanted to just kind of update you on is that we have been spending quite a bit of time generally on the site, from the flow and all the logistics, but also thinking about all of the student-focused spaces on the site, outdoor learning, playgrounds, and all of that stuff. So we've begun that conversation with the administrative team and our civil and landscape architects. And I've included in the PowerPoint some of the imagery that has been, and we can just kind of maybe go through that, some of the imagery that we've been using as reference as we talk about these spaces. Some of the landscaping and outdoor learning inspiration images. These are some of the things that you might see in the designs that we propose. You'll notice that in the landscaping areas, you can see a lot of more natural vegetation, the use of kind of meadows and no-mow grasses. We're going to have some areas with some steep slopes where we've as we've graded into the hillside. And so we're using, and so it's a little bit challenging to get trees to root on those areas, and you certainly want to be mowing them and with regularity. So we're proposing that these kind of wild grasses could be used in those areas as a low maintenance item that really, has a natural aesthetic. Some of the other images that you see in here are, the outdoor classroom spaces where we've, utilizing those areas in the courtyard, and then out even to the area down by the existing wetland. So there's, a lot of these features I think will be good references and will probably work their way in some way or another into our design, including things like raised bed planters for students to be able to do some agricultural studies. Go ahead. Also on the playground, we've been talking about some of the attributes of the playground spaces, whether they be for K2 playground or for the 3-5. And so some of these things are things that we're looking at. And I know that the administration is going to be initiating some activities with some students to try to solicit their feedback on some things that they'd like to see at the playground. So we're excited to see what they come up with as well. Just an update on the building plans. We can go into as much detail as you'd like at this time, but we've included the overall floor plans, which are similar to what you've seen before, starting to get a little bit more definition in the spaces. If you could flip to the next slide. I wanted to just spend a minute talking about this main floor and the commons. These are kind of some of the more public spaces. There also includes specials. And I know with the small scale drawing, it's a little bit hard to see how those spaces are really working. So on the this is a blow up of that area. So it's starting at the left-hand side, as we enter the building at the secure vestibule, we've got the main office and counseling and nurse to one side. We've got a community room, and we actually met with the PTO, PTA last week, and talked to them about their needs, building-wide, but specifically talking a little bit more about how that community room could be an asset for them. That space would be able to be accessed from the secure vestibule without going into the rest of the school, so it could be used in the evenings as well. And it has a storage room and a restroom associated with it. Kind of continuing up the page from there, there's the multi-purpose assembly space, and you can see there that represents what the seat configuration would look like when it's pulled out. So we've talked about how those seats would be retractable. What you're seeing in that diagram is about 630 seats in a kind of a performance mode. And then right above that, you'll see the notation for the performance area. And the idea is that this is all one big flat floor. And those bleacher type seating are like a stadium seating. So you're actually kind of looking down on the students when they're in the performance area. And then that seating can all be pushed against the wall, and then that space is all open for a variety of different functions. We've also been kind of massaging the music area to include spaces for general instruction, as well as ensembles and small group instrumental lessons. And all of those types of spaces we'll be working with the teachers. In the next couple weeks, we'll be having our first round of teacher meetings with them. And so we're preparing for those discussions. As we work our way further to the right, some of the interesting features that are in this area, we have the corridor that kind of moves from left to right. You'll see that where it's noted that we have a learning stair on this main floor. That's really a set of like kind of platform seats that will have a teaching wall associated with them. So it's really a little bit like an LGI where classes can go out there and have group work. The kitchen and cafeteria are labeled with the servery and the differentiation between the K2 area and the 3-5 area. Moving further to the right, we've got STEAM classrooms. Actually, I think that this is something, once again, even just today, that'll be revised in the next version. I think we're going to make that one big room as opposed to two divided spaces. So that, once again, it's already out of date. And then moving across, we've got our divided gymnasium. This would have a folding wall, and we're showing a total of about 250 seats in like a community athletic configuration. And then we have one of our 3 art rooms on this floor as well. Any questions? You've seen kind of overall on the lower level. Did I hear a question? Okay. The overall on the lower level, and then if we could just go ahead to the next slide. Just once again, kind of focusing a little bit on that commons corridor that goes across the building. The divided PE space, we talked about that in our last board meeting. We're still really haven't really nailed down what the curriculum for that space looks like. So there's not as much development in that area at this point. But moving further along to the right, we've developed a primary reading center. We have a couple different options that we've laid out for that area that would include classroom space, books, as well as a storytelling area for the young readers. Moving a little bit further across the page, we've got our second STEAM classroom. Once again, that will become one big large space, and it's directly adjacent to the outdoor classroom and the environmental courtyard. As we move further over to the right, is the second learning stair. So we have one on this level as well, and there would be a teaching wall. So with that oversized core space, the learning stair, the STEAM classroom, and the outdoor space, this whole area really becomes a multi-purpose hub for a lot of different curricular project-based learning, especially focused on the outdoors.
I have a
Okay.
question about the primary reading space.
Mm-hmm.
How many students does that accommodate? How will that function, I guess, with, so many K-1-2 students there? I'm just curious how it works.
So each of the special areas has a different requirement for the number of classes that will circulate through it in a given day. So at this point, we anticipate that that primary reading center will most likely be used by one class of students, I believe, a period. But there is room for a second class to be in like storytelling area at the same time. But correct me if I'm saying that incorrectly, Dr. Walsh, but I believe that it will just rotate one class throughout the day, throughout the week.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And then as we go upstairs, you might as well go to the next slide, if you don't mind. Is there another slide?
We're getting there. Hold on.
Okay. So this is that commons area up on the top floor, and really focusing on that more public area again. One of the things that, because the first floor has a lot of high volume spaces like the gym and the assembly space, that's kind of what you're seeing with some of that white space at the top. We also have some low roof areas. So really, it's the colored area that kind of is that corridor that is the occupied space on this floor. And starting at the left, we've got our library media center, and the program around that is also one of the ones that's lagging a little bit further behind. I think we made some progress at our last meeting in terms of the number of classes and classrooms we need in that area. Moving across in the middle there, we've got 2 art classrooms. So there are 3 in the building, 2 on this floor and 1 on the mid floor. And I think the expectation is probably that the one that's on the middle floor will be more used by the younger, the primary floor. And then the one on this floor would be more for the upper grades. And just moving across to the right, there's some spaces that aren't labeled, like mechanical spaces, faculty rooms, and there's a health there as well. So, that really is our update tonight. I did want to mention that we are really focusing a lot of attention on the site with regard to submitting for municipal approvals and NPDS approvals. So we did have a kick with the municipality last week, and I think that the municipality showed their focus on cooperating with the district to try to minimize the issues as much as possible. So I thought that was a positive meeting. We are targeting to be submitting before the end of the year so that we can be in front of them in January. And like I mentioned, we will be starting our meetings with the teacher groups in the next couple weeks.
Cassie, can I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
The board was discussing, sort of getting the feedback from last Wednesday's meeting with the municipality, and it was our impression that the first place they want us to go would be zoning for any variances. Could you review again your anticipation on what variances you'd be asking for?
Yeah, so we anticipated going into the meeting last week that we might need 2 variances. One for the sign at the road and one for the height of the building. KP mentioned at our meeting that the our municipality was adopting an amendment for the signage. And we got a copy of that, and we think that we could probably be successful without getting a variance for the signage. If you look at what we presented you tonight, the sign that we showed at the entrance off of King School Road, a sign similar to that would meet the signage amendment without a variance.
Okay, so it's just the height of the building.
And so the height of the building was something that we were working with KP on also, because there's a little bit of a interpretation of the way that the height is in the ordinance. And so we may not need a variance for that as well. I think that KP was interested in trying to help us interpret that ordinance in a way that wouldn't require a variance.
That's good news. We were all girding for battle here. The second question would be, in your mind, timing for submittals and when we would start to schedule time in front of the Planning Commission and the municipality. I think I heard you say end of the year.
Yeah, so we would be targeting submission in December for the land development as well as lot consolidation. Those are 2 approvals that would need to go in at the same time. They'll actually hold the lot consolidation on their agenda first, and then they would talk about the land development. So they had recommended that hold a meeting to discuss the project with neighbors prior to submitting, or if we had to go for a zoning variance, to do it before that as well, but we may not need a zoning variance. So we would probably be looking at sometime in the next month to be having that meeting with the neighbors.
So I think one of the things we've heard pretty regularly about the neighbors' curiosities would be things like turning lanes, traffic lights, sidewalks, et cetera. At what point do you think you would have clarity on those details, that it would be a meaningful time spent with the community?
That's a good question. The engineer working on that level of detail right now. Part of the conversation with the municipality was going over things like the traffic study. I know that HRG, who's doing the traffic study on your behalf, and Gateway's engineer, who is the municipal traffic engineer, they talked a little bit after the meeting, and I believe that they had scheduled a time to get together and talk about the analysis. So we can reach out to them, to HRG, and try to put a pin on when those meetings all need to happen. Those analyses are all underway currently. And so I can't promise you when that would be done at this moment.
Okay, I think then we would agree that we certainly want to have many answers as we could to what have been some recurring questions before we'd want to schedule those community meetings in the neighborhood.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Cassie, this is Barry Christensen. I just had a question about, looking at the plans, I was looking at where the stairway locations are and things like that. And have we done any, I guess you call it internal traffic flow analysis to kind of, make sure that, as we're changing classrooms, going to special, going to music, that the stairs are navigable, that, we're maybe minimizing the steps for the younger children? Any type of design considerations going into that? Are we comfortable with how the access is between floors and to move around during the day?
I believe that this has been a group effort between the administration and ourselves, trying to understand how kids are going to move from class to class. I know we've had several different discussions around what the schedule might look like. I think that we are generally that they are designed in appropriate locations and sized appropriately for the traffic. There may be things that come out of the administration's continued programming of the building and looking at what schedules might look like that could suggest that we make some tweaks to those things. I think that we're generally comfortable with where and how they function.
I'll just add on to that, Cassie, as an example of that consideration. We put an art room on the first floor, so it's by our calculation, no student has to go more than one flight to any special area, to lunch, to phys ed, to the door. The most a student would travel would be one flight
Okay.
to go where they need to go.
Okay, yeah, that's reasonable.
And there's stairs at the end of the corridors along the main street. There's stairs in the middle of the crossway, and then there's stairs at the bottom end near the entrance. So kids coming off the bus would go right into a stairwell and up.
Okay.
So
We also have two elevators in the design, one that's at the kind of that crossing bridge element that Dr. Walsh just mentioned, and one that's on Main Street.
Thank you.
It looks like you have a pretty big amount of space dedicated to library and media center. On slide 14, you kind of have it partitioned on the bottom into 3 sections. I'm assuming the bigger section is probably going to be the library portion, but I was curious what those 3 bottom sections were anticipated to be.
On the second floor media center would be a library classroom space, which would be a scheduled special. And there is one of the spaces will be a STEM or STEAM resource space. And the large open space will be the library itself. And we anticipate that library could accommodate a teacher bringing a class of students just to do research. So it's not necessarily a library period, it's just a teacher wanting to take their class to do research on, their core curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
one of the things that we've been looking at is the tech ed curriculum for 5th grade, and whether we move that into more STEAM or coding, and so that's where the space would be if we go that direction. Yeah.
I think there's a huge payoff in this design with all those specials, with, library that's more than just shelves of books, but as technology. You look at STEAM, you look at the specials, the tech ed, where we can't afford to replicate it 5 times, but now we can put, really good programming when things occur once. I think that's a huge, something that everybody's going to notice that is just massively different, massively better than what we have today.
Agreed. I mean, just looking at all the spaces that are available, all the different spaces, all the STEAM rooms, the library media center, those aren't things that, we currently have available in really any of our buildings, let alone all students having access to them. So thank you, Dr. Walsh.
Any other questions for Draw?
Thank you, Cassie.
Yes, thank you, Cassie.
Okay. Thank you again for letting us participate virtually.
Sure, I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda, Mr. McCausland is going to tell us how we can afford this, right?
I'm not going to tell you that. I'm basically, what I have in front of you tonight is just for your reference more than anything. I'll walk you kind of through what you're looking at, and then we'll provide this on a monthly basis, give you updates on where we are with the spending. The first page is really a cash flow of Fund 31, which is your money set aside for the renovations taking place at Independence Middle School. We originally had about $42 million, a little over $42 million that was issued in the bond issue in the spring. And then I've broken down for you in very summary terms on this sheet where we spent those funds over the last several months. Behind that, you have several pages of other information tied to this project, including a budget to actual. Again, the numbers that are sitting there for Phase 2, we don't have finalized. We'll know those more in November after SiteLogic comes back with those numbers. So those are just basically placeholders for now. But you can get a sense of where you are as far as being on budget or being over budget with the project right now. There's a tab there with your interest earnings you've had so far, and then detailed summaries of what you paid out to SiteLogics and Hayes Design and any other expenditures along the way. All the detail is there for you. If you have questions on anything you see, you just shoot me an email or ask me a question in a meeting. I'll get you the answer. But that's the point of that document, and then we'll try to give it to you every month updated from this point on. There's also included in there for your reference is a similar summary on Fund 32, which is your capital reserve fund. You can see the money that comes in and the money that goes out and what it's being used for. I have broken down some of the projects in that fund, such as your bus garage project that's going on, and then some of the costs right now that we're paying out for the new elementary school. Eventually, that money for the new elementary school will get transferred to a new bond issue, but we have to track it separately so that we know how much we've spent out of that fund and that we can repay the capital reserve once the bond issue is issued, probably sometime in '23. But again, detail there on the bus paving project and all the different contractors for the different parts of the project. You have all the detail there. There's a brief summary on bus purchases we made, and then detail on the upper elementary school as well, and then any other projects that we have paid out of the capital reserve fund as well. And then, again, interest income reported on a monthly basis. So that's really the point of those. We'll keep adding columns and going over, so you'll get more detail as the months go by. Any questions, anything you'd like to see, happy to answer it.
Would it be possible, it looks like when we're looking at the finances here, it's a list of what we paid, basically our outgoing cash flow.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to have another column that says kind of like, remaining budget and kind of how we're tracking it? Because that's ultimately we want to know, if we're going over budget, we don't want that to be in the rearview mirror. We would like that to be, looking ahead. Is there a way to?
There is a
understand,
budget
are
to actual there. And with the balance, so you can see what's left in the fund. I don't know what else for the middle school project. Is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's there. I don't know.
Is that going to be enough to finish it? Or are we going to have to spend more? I guess that's the question.
Well, we'll know that more once we know the numbers for Phase 2. They're bidding that out. SiteLogic was talking about doing that right now. So once we know those numbers, where they come in, then remember that with the GISA project, they're locked into holding that number. You're not going to have any change orders. So you have a pretty good sense once those numbers come in, whether you're going to have enough money to finish this project. Yeah.
Well, just as a couple of points on that. First, number one is that throughout the design of Phase 2, we kept coming back to that dollar figure, and I think the designers and the construction management team were keenly aware of that ceiling that you set for them. So Phase 2 is, by all estimations, going to come in at or under budget. And I don't have a strong concern that we're going to have to come back and redo the drawings, cutting things or trimming things to make it stay under that threshold. Because that work has already happened.
Okay.
And
The
then we'll-
second thing that Doug's working on that I don't think it's ready yet is some of the projections to your earlier point is what's this going to cost? I think the better question is what's this going to do to tax millage?
Yes.
And he's working on some graphs and some projections that I think soon be able to roll that out and share it with the board based on all of our estimations on this project cost in the elementary and all the other capital work that's going on.
Okay.
Okay.
Just quick question, Doug. When will we show the purchase of the Petty Peace property?
That is not here because it's part of Fund 30. It'll have to be part of Fund 32, part of that upper new elementary. So as soon as we make that purchase, then it will show up on that report.
But we won't be able to finance that, or we have to?
You will eventually. It'll be part of the bond issue you
Okay,
do in
that's-
23. We'll just track it here in Fund 32. We'll make the purchase, and then I suspect we'll probably issue those bonds sometime in around April, once we have a better handle on what the cost of the new elementary is going to be. But those costs will be included.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McCausland, one more question. On the bus garage where we're paying South Hills Village for the parking, we paid them one lump sum, or is that the monthly?
Yeah, we paid them one lump sum.
Okay, just making sure.
On the property we're purchasing, is there a reason why we maybe wouldn't want to finance it and, just take it out of our capital fund? Depending upon what our disposition is afterwards, or if we're going to get grants to offset, any of the construction, would it be more beneficial to not finance that?
It's certainly an option. You have the money sitting in the capital reserve where you could do that, and then before you make the final decision on how much you're going to borrow with the new bond issue, you can either include that or not include that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a decision you can make once you have a sense of what the total project for the new elementary is going to be.
Right.
To the,
We anticipate phase two, I know they're separate, but phase two being under.
I would say at. Yes. Right. That's the expectation we should have, is this going to make exactly at the target.
So as of right now, you're showing 7 million in capital, 7.5.
In capital reserve, yeah.
To the point of the elementary's cost, we're meeting tomorrow as a meeting with potential bidders for it to be the project manager, the construction manager. Potentially by mid-November, we should have our finalists for the board to consider and appoint. Then they'll take over the work of bidding and estimating the cost of this project based on the designs that we have. So we'll get the professionals on the job to do that work.
Okay. Good. Any other comments, questions on finances? No? Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, public comments on any of the agenda items, the things we've talked about or the things we'll be voting on in the next section. Any comments, any call-ins? To your earlier point.
Well, while we're waiting, were there any other questions or issues regarding the designs and the materials? We're going to have all that out on the
Ready to connect.
have that
Click
all on
connect
the
to show now.
microsite
You are
tomorrow morning.
connected as the host.
So the bus garage
Welcome,
update
host.
and the
You are now in the host room and can manage your
collected
callers from the
drawings that are
Collins
on that
Studio
website.
web interface.
Can we maybe feature that through some of the, an update on the social media posts?
Yes,
Update in the
yes.
weekly update next week?
Yeah.
To make sure we.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Walsh, that was one thing we heard from PTA Council was showing especially the elementary parents, just the pictures, no clicking. It shows, they open the email and there are the designs of that. So if we could talk with them tomorrow about helping us do that also on the
Okay.
call.
Yep.
That was big because a lot of parents are looking at it on their phones. And I know you and I have had that discussion.
Okay.
There are no calls.
No comments? Okay, thank you. Moving to facilities, Mr. Modrak, can you take these 8 items?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have 8 items. 2 are discussion items and 6 are payments. So at this time, we have discussion item on Educational Boulevard Access Road besides Independence Middle School. Dr. Walsh?
Yes, so, thank you. So I'm going to
I'd like to fill that. Sure.
to us, please.
Sure. So we did a little preliminary work, talking with the fire department, talking with the municipality on our quest to possibly make this Education Boulevard one-way. And the real reason behind it has to do with safety, because we are going to have
I'm sorry, could you tell people where you're talking about so they know
Okay.
in their heads what you're talking about?
You mean y'all don't know where Education Boulevard is? Okay, it's the access road, I'm sorry, that's a great point. The access road that comes behind the YMCA, wraps around the corner and goes up into the main driveway of IMS. So it's an access point road.
It's more a trail than a boulevard.
Yes, yes. It's called Educational Boulevard because it's quite an education if you take it. But anyway, basically, what's different about that, about the project is that on the backside of IMS, where this boulevard comes up and crosses over, about at the crest of the hill, is going to be an access point. That access point into the building for egress is actually where the ramp is located. And as you know, that ramp's going to be demolished. There's going to be a stairwell put in and an elevator as well. So that's actually going to come up to grade. Right now, when you go down around the ramp, the windows up above are way high, but when you start the ramp up on top, if you were to go straight across, it's basically at ground level. So second floor out that exit would be a new egress for fire. That'll obviously be accessible through the stairwell and also the second floor. So with that said, we anticipate that we are going to probably use that as a drop-off for some of our smaller buses that need to access the building firsthand, as opposed to our main buses, as everybody knows, drops off at the high school parking lot. So once again, it's for the smaller buses. So with that said, the front of the building will still be parent drop-off and staff parking and all that. With the need to have an egress there, there's going to be a sidewalk that's going to be constructed that will align adjacent to the building on the same side as the building. It'll go down to that intersection. If you know the walkway that comes off of Bethel Church Road, that comes all the way down the driveway, that's a macadam walkway. Folks might think it's concrete, but it's not. It's macadam, raised macadam surface. We'll do the same thing along the building. So we have a lot of walkers that go to IMS, 15 to 20 walkers in the morning, and they're going to need access to that point. So after school, they'll exit out. They'll need to have a sidewalk for safety reasons. We want to make it one way so that we can control it. Of course, there'll be some signage for district vehicles. And I'm not talking about regular staff. I'm talking about authorized vehicles from the district, maintenance vehicles and so forth, that will have the ability to go either way. The fire department will have the ability to go either way in the event of an emergency, as well as ambulance and all those support services would be able to access it either way. But once again, it's to prevent, and also that road, if you know the road real well, as it goes around the bend, it's really a single lane around the corner. It's not really a two-lane road. So there's some issues with it. We're going to confine it a bit more with the egress and the sidewalk. So that's why we really feel in the best interest of safety for children is to keep that road one-way. And the one-way direction we're proposing would be from the YMCA up the hill would be the direction of the one-way, not coming from the main entrance. That would be do not enter sign from that side.
Questions, concerns, feedback?
Will that be during school hours only, one way, or one way all the time?
We plan on making it one way all the time, and the problem with it during school hours is you have issues with the signs that say, I mean, look, right now, we have to put gates up at the high school because folks don't abide by during school hour rules. So it's going to have those big red round signs that say, do not enter, and it'll say one way going up the hill. So it's like, it's part of what we're going to do as far as on a 24-hour basis.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't have a question as much as an observation, which doesn't influence anything. I'm just mentioning, I suspect that a lot of the community that is from like the Lincoln side, trying to access IMS or the high school, probably diverts now and dips down to the YMCA for picking kids up. So I suspect there's going to be increased traffic at the Bethel Church, which currently, you know, if you're making the left there and there's only one lane, I think, you know what I mean? Because
Sure.
people come in here, go down, pick up at IMS, and then get out.
I mean,
They're
we
gonna
did
need to go
see an
around.
increase with COVID, with parents dropping off. That has subsided substantially. And so we don't see the backlog that we once saw all the way out on the Bethel Church.
Oh, for sure. It's so
Yeah,
much
it's
better
actually
now, yeah.
really calmed down. There's about a 10-minute window in the morning, and it really has to do with turning, making a left turn, coming up Bethel Church into IMS. That's the biggest issue that we have, and, you know, only a traffic light would really solve that, and I don't think that's what we're proposing at this point in time.
Yeah, no.
That's a county road,
I just
too,
think
so-
people coming from that way often cut through to get down to the high school, and they're going to have to use the light
Mostly from
now.
the standpoint of left
Yeah.
turn, because, you know, if people are going from IMS to the high school, and if they have to go into Bethel Church, they gotta make 2 left turns to get back to the high school.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, if they, going from the high school to IMS, it's all right turns. So traffic is full, a little bit smoother.
We're not opposed to if it needs to go the other direction. We just want it to be one way just to restrict traffic. Because it's just for safety for students and the bus drop off back there. There's really not enough room. We're going to lose some of those parking spaces in the back because of the sidewalk and the drop off. We figure we're going to lose about 8 to 10 spaces. So we just thought it might make more sense going up the hill. Sometimes when you have one way going down the hill, you get a little bit of a lead foot. Going up the hill's a little bit safer. So that's really the thinking behind it.
Yeah, that's valid too. But anyway, in terms of the discussion topic, nobody's objecting to,
It's looking at me like I'm the lead foot.
No objections?
Next week.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Next item, I think we kind of be the scheduling community meetings, but you did touch upon that just earlier.
Yes, I think. Thank you. You're right. And I think what we need to do is wait until we have some clarity from DRAW and the site engineer's traffic study, so we'd be able to schedule them with good information to share. We're not trying to stall. It's just we don't want to get up there and present half answers to all the questions that we've been hearing since the project first got announced. So I'm going to make a prediction that we'll sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas for a goal.
Yes.
That'd be our target.
The next items, there's 6, but 5 of the 6 are for payment. One is an agreement, which is item number 5, which is the Allegheny Medical Transport. We can go one by one. We are voting on these, right?
Yeah, you can do
So
them
we
all
can pay
three, I
them.
think.
I just, so,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just on the cameras, is that district-wide? Is that, what sites are we looking at? It's 34,000, where are these cameras going? I guess?
That's for everywhere in the district. I
Everywhere in
believe.
the district?
I believe so.
Okay.
so I'll read each one off, and if anybody has any
Jim, I have
questions.
one more question for that. These cameras are all outside, are they attached to buildings, or are they attached
They're
to?
outdoor cameras.
Okay, so they're attached to the lights in the parking lots? Are they attached to the buildings? Are they attached to the stadium? Where, I'm not asking where they're going, I'm asking,
Yes, the answer is yes. They're going to be attached to different locations for different purposes. Yeah.
Okay, item 3 was payment for Phase 1 for SiteLogic in the amount of $2,211,859 as part of Phase 1. Item number 4 was the cameras for a cost of $34,946. Item number 5 was an agreement with Allegheny Medical Transport. If there's any explanations, I think we all read it. Item number 6 was also payment for Phase 1 to the Hayes Design Group for a total of $26,000. Item number 7 is payment for Phase 2 to the Hayes Design Group for $151,096.29. And item number 8 is payment for the Hayes Group of the amount of $14,873 for a bus garage renovation project. I'd like to move all those items.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, question on the cameras. It looks like included in that purchase is a 5-year license and support. Does that include any malfunctioning with the cameras for replacement, repair? I know we've had issues in the past with our cameras operating properly outside.
Can't speak to the actual, what it covers, but I can find out from Mr. Slezak and let you know.
Okay.
And just clarification for the number 5, agreement with medical transport. That's just, believe, assisting our transportation department with a particular run.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
easier.
special needs run to GT Watson, and we didn't have a driver to cover it, so we enlisted this outsourced company to do that run.
Thank you.
Is there, I guess, personally, I would be curious to hear about exactly what that covers before voting for it personally. Would there be any harm in holding that out 1 week?
No, we can hold it out.
Cameras or the
cameras.
transportation?
The cameras.
Cameras?
No, I'm just curious. I don't want us to get in the same situation that we've been in previously where, we have cameras in locations and they're not operating properly.
Just a correction, the cameras are for the high school parking lot and the exterior of the high school building.
And I'm just thinking, and Dr. J can allude to also, since he was part of it, I think mostly is the fact that they're just outdated. They're 10 years old.
Okay.
I think that's, in my experience working with cameras in the other districts and those there, I think that is the issue, is just they're old.
Okay.
And they do have a shelf life, and I think we just reached them.
yeah,
You know.
I can attest to part of that because of the camera in the parking lot. When we were asking to see if it could, where it could go for the softball incident, it doesn't get much because it doesn't turn. So I think that is part of what they've learned, that they're not, hopefully that they're going to get winterized this time. That's part of it, is winterizing and those kinds of things. And they
So
are
pull it
old.
for next week and have Mr. Slezak give a little more detail?
If that's not a problem with anyone.
Okay. All right,
The
so-
warranty covers 3 years of the cameras
Oh,
replacements.
3 years. 3 years
Mhm.
of camera life? Okay. And then 5 would just be, I guess, general support.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good then.
We're
I'm
good
all
then?
good then.
It'll stay on for a
Yep.
vote? Okay, thank you. That being said, no other questions or discussion? And we'll vote on items 3 through 8.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
Thank you. Any public comments on anything related to the school? To school operations in general? Nobody online?
No calls.
I should really call on one of you two to make make some comments. We're feeling pretty lonely up here, so. Any board comments?
I think we have the tree planting on Friday.
Yes, we do, yeah. At Miners Park.
At Miners Park with Ben Franklin Kindergarten again, like we did for Arbor Day at Millennium. All that can attend, I believe it starts at 10:30.
Yeah,
I think 10 or 10:30. We can check your emails.
10, I
10.
have it as 10 on mine.
And then to benefit the Bethel Park Public Library, the Yinzer Dinner is the 21st. It's starting at 5 o'clock. And then Bethel Bounty, which benefits the library, the Education Foundation, the Historic Society, and the Community Foundation, is November 6th at 5 o'clock.
And there is no Steeler game that day.
There is no Steeler game that day, so,
Right.
your
No
attendance
conflicts.
is on time.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, one more thing too. Friday night is the Gold Star football game. And attended last year, we're playing Moon. But it is a very nice program, recognizing a lot of our veterans and a lot of our fallen heroes. We've had a few in our community, one in our time when we worked at the high school. But so it's a very nice event if anybody has the opportunity, hopefully the weather will be cooperating, to stop up as Bethel Park Hawks take on Moon Tigers, but for the Gold Star game. Doc will be there, right?
Fantastic, good. Any other comments?
Just to remind people out there, NAMS will have their color run coming up on Saturday. So it's a fun time, and there are baskets that are being, auctioned off, and there are tickets you could get online, so. That's about it, color run.
Thank you. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Oh,
I was just going to ask if the board could stay for 5 more minutes. Megan wanted to update you on a
Sure.
particular question.
yeah, okay. Motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye.